Hi, I'm Christina Wise, best-selling author of Falling for Money and CEO-founder of the award-winning Good Life Companies. I'm passionate about helping women thrive in business, with money, and in life so that we can truly live a good life. I'm so excited to share with you my SAS. That is my Spending is Saving system, where I teach 5 surefire ways to start saving today. I'm sharing exactly what I taught recently in my $1,500 training course and sharing it with you for free. You'll hear me talk about 5 SAS buckets. Just think of buckets overflowing with cash. And you'll also hear about my prosperity mapping system, or money map as I sometimes call it. When watching the training, keep in mind that my SAS system I'm teaching you here is just one part of that 5-part prosperity mapping system. You'll also hear some new ways I talk about money, like ARM, which stands for Annual Required Minimum Expense. If you hear any other terms that are new or require some additional explanation, just put your questions in the box below. I'll be sure to respond. Now, let's get started so that you can take home more of that hard-earned cash.
So these buckets, I'll share what we do. We have a savings account for every bucket. So that's the way Gary and I keep our money organized. Some people want to put it all in one bucket, and if you can do that, more power to you. But this helps us allocate our money, and we only spend what's in the bucket if it's reserved for spending or whatever, or savings, and we'll get into that later. But we have a savings account. We even pay some extra fees in order to keep this system going, but it's much better for us personally than commingling and spending too much and getting confused. So that's the first savings account, is our rainy day with the reserves. The second is college and education. And I'm just going to put $250 there as well. There's over $1 trillion in student loan debt today. It's a tragedy. It's a complete tragedy what is happening to our country with student loan debt. This isn't the place to talk about it, but what is happening is the $1 trillion of student loan debt is just the students getting the loans. That doesn't count the parents that are borrowing against their 401ks that will never get back, because we've already determined there's never the money, there's not going to be the money to ever pay it back. We can barely have enough money to fund it in the first place. Parents are taking money out of the equity of their homes. So what's going to happen when they quit working and can't make the mortgage payment anymore? And the kids are getting maxed out in debt. And many examples, $100,000 in debt, and then they get a $10 hour job after college, which is pretty common these days. Maybe a little bit more if they get a bartending job. So the point is that it's tragedy. I mean, there's so much happening, but what happens is that we're in a culture where debt is just debt's just so easy to get. You don't think twice. I mean, everybody's getting a student loan. Isn't that what you do? Your kid goes from high school to college, and there's debt. You get debt to get the education. Don't do that if we can help it. Some of us, it might be too late. But the debt has to be paid off. And schools are really expensive these days. Like ridiculously expensive, way overpriced expensive. Like, I still can't see how kids can get a return out of $100,000 education. Just the math doesn't add up. But that's obviously not a conversation to be here. But the thing is if we have kids going to college at any point in time, we need to put money away and start saving for that. We can save for it by putting in a savings account or a college fund or whatever it is, but we need to start putting that money in. Now, what if we don't have kids yet? Then we don't have to fund it yet. What if our kids are already out of college and we don't have that $250? Well, where do you want to put it? But if you do have kids going to college or soon go to college, you want to start funding this. And I'm just putting this in here because I want parents to start knowing student loans it's not good for the family. It's not good for the kids to start out having $50, $60, $70, $80, $100,000 worth of debt before they even start their first job. It's just too hard. We're learning to dig ourselves out of that. So, but I also put money there for education. So it's not just our kids' education. What about our education? Part of why our income doesn't go up is because we don't continually educate ourselves. So we just continue to do the same thing over time and maybe a little bit less valuable. So for us to own our life, for us to continue to make more money, to increase our income, to be valuable in the marketplace, to differentiate, to take charge, most of it is we have to know more. And we, again, this culture is like, okay, I go to college, I get my degree, or maybe I get my master's degree, and then I'm done. I just don't see it possible. I don't see how incomes can continue to rise in that scenario. So what we do is Gary and I spend a lot of money on our education. We're funding it for our kids really first right now. Both of our kids are in college, but it's all coming out of the college savings. Our college, we have no stress about college, and they have their budgets. They get their college allowance, and that's all they get to spend, but it's coming out of our college education bucket. It's all saved. And it's not fully funded 4 years, but we have 2 years funded for each one, and then we'll continue funding those month to month until they're out of school. And then guess what? Gary and I get a big raise, But we also fund our own education. We spend a lot of money just traveling to different parts of the country, going to conferences, learning as much as we can, learning more about technology, online programs. I just spent $1,000 on an online program to improve my memory. I want to be a master at memorizing, so I bought Jim Quick's program, for example, right? So just constantly investing, but it's in the budget, and I can look into see our money account to see if I have the money to spend. Make sense? So I put that in there too to encourage all of us to, as part of the Flourish, is to make sure that we're investing in ourselves, that we're paying ourselves first. We're taking care of our future self through making sure we have our rainy day fund set, and that we're continuing to invest in our future self to continue to grow and learn and expand and become more valuable versus less valuable over time. Okay? Any other questions there? So how much for the college education? I just put $250 a month.
I hope I can add some sass to your life with these 5 Spending is Saving training videos. If you have any questions or comments while watching, put them in the comments section below. I will reply personally to every post. Enjoy.